Your patent sucks because you don't know how a patent is structured and how it works. My name is Steve Hansen. I've been a practicing patent attorney for over 25 years. Not only do I write patents, but I tear apart other people's patents in litigation. If you like this content, please like, follow, and share. If you're going to bother getting in the patent game, you really got to learn how a patent is structured and what the different parts of the patent mean and how they're used. Otherwise, you're really wasting your time. This is going to be an expensive and difficult process, and the clients who do well are the ones who learn the most and learn how to use the patent system to their advantage. And the starting point is to understand what a patent is and what it is not, and how the different parts of a patent work. So I'm going to show you an example patent for a scoop spatula, a very simple device, because I don't want anybody to get bogged down in the technology. But as you'll see, a patent is basically broken down into a specification and claims. Some people say specification, drawings, and claims, but that doesn't really matter. The key thing is there's sort of a teaching component and there's a protected property right component. So the claims define the scope of the intellectual property. You know, they just the picket fence, if you want to think of it that way, they describe how big that is and what is inside the picket fence, just the way a deed does for real estate. And then the specification, the drawings, teach people how to make and use examples of the invention that's defined by the claims. So those are the basics. So let's go take a look at this scoop spatula patent. This is a very simple patent, which makes it easier to illustrate the basics of the patent so don't get bogged down in the technology. So this is called a scoop spatula patent. In the upper right-hand corner, where it says patent number, after the number, it has the suffix B as in boy 2. That's a suffix that's used to indicate that what you're looking at is an issued utility patent, as opposed to a design patent, which we'll talk about in another video. So this is the face page of a patent. If you look on the left-hand side, it shows you the title in line 54, and then line 71, there's the applicant's name, and beneath that's the inventor name. In this case, they're the same, the applicant and the inventor. Sometimes the applicant is the owner of the patent, who is not necessarily the inventor. Line 21, left-hand column, is the application number or serial number. So that's different than the patent number that's up in the upper right-hand corner. The serial number is the number they give the application when you file it so they can keep track of it in the patent office. It may or may not ultimately issue as a patent. And then once it does issue as a patent, it's assigned a patent number. That's in the upper right-hand corner. And then there's some other information about the prior art classes and some of the prior art that was considered. So in the structure of a patent, basically we break it down into 2 sections or 3 sections, depending on who you talk to. And that is the claims and the specification, or some people say the claims, the specification, the drawings. So in a U.S. patent, after the face page is where the drawings show up. And you can see at the top line, it says sheet 1 of 8. So that tells you how many sheets of drawings there are. And we'll scroll through here and you can see all the various figures that are used here. And then once we get to the end of the figures, we now get to the specification. So this specification describes examples of the invention, but not the scope of the protected property right. That's the province of the claims. So the specification is the teaching part of the patent that teaches people how to make and use examples of what the claims cover. So you'll see here that on this page in column 2, there's a brief description of the drawings. You'll see that in every patent, just a very quick 1 or 2 line description of what the different drawings show. And then beneath that, you have a detailed description of the invention. And that's where you get into the guts of all the embodiments and the details about how to make and use the invention. I guess before that, I should look at the left-hand side of column 1. There's a background. Background is usually where you describe what the jumping off point for the patent was. You know, usually there's some technology development up to a certain point, and then that's where the patent takes off from, and that's in the background. The background, you got to be careful when you write it. You want to write it in a way that sort of suggests the invention's important, but you also don't want to make too many admissions about what's in the prior art because those can be used against you. After the background and before the brief description of the drawings, at the bottom of column 1, you'll see a summary. The summary is a weird section. It used to be called summary of the invention, and there's a reason people don't use that language anymore. But what it often is really just a parroting of the claim language. And the reason people did that is to make sure that the claims are, quote, supported by the specification. And so they at least often put the language of the independent claims directly in there, because sometimes when you write the claims, the language you use ends up being a little different than the specification description of the embodiments themselves. And so sometimes, just to be safe and so no one accuses you of not having a written description that supports the claims, you'll put a description in the summary that really mirrors the claim language, or at least the independent claims. So that's the specification. Now we get to the end of the patent, and that's where you see the claims. And you can see here, it starts with what is claimed is. That's how the claims section starts. Now, again, the claims are the part of the patent that defines the property right, the scope of it. The same way the deed to your house describes the scope of the real property, the claims describe the scope of the patent property. And they're in pretty strange, awkward language, but you'll see they're all numbered. And a claim that doesn't refer back to another claim is called an independent claim. But then another claim that does refer back to another claim is called a dependent claim. So if you look at claim 2 here, you'll see where it says the cooking utensil apparatus of claim 1, and then it has some additional features. And so that claim refers back to the independent claim, and so it's a dependent claim. So we'll talk more about the different sections in detail, but this is the basic layout of a patent. And if you're going to get involved in patents, you should become familiar with the different sections and what they mean and how they're used. Okay, so that's the basic layout of a utility patent. We'll also look at a design patent later. It's much simpler. There's not that much to a design patent. It's basically a set of drawings and a description. But that's all for now. Hope that helps to keep you out of trouble, and I hope to see you here soon.